In the early to mid-90s, Capcom and Disney, along with Nintendo, were responsible for making some of the best games on the Super Nintendo. With a license to make video games from Disney movies and licensing out cartoons, there were select few games in my eyes that came out in 1993, at least in my opinion, were some of the greatest games of all time. There was one game that stood up above the rest, an adventure game starring Goofy. This game is Goof Troop. This game to this day is a great and awesome adventure. Great graphics, awesome music, and gameplay that keeps you going and going and going until the game ends. But does this game have the fun times going? And is this game as solid as a Super Nintendo game? Let's find out on My Disney Marathon and Goof Troop. The history for this game is non-existent. The only thing I can say about the history of Goof Troop is it was created by Capcom's very own Shinji Mikami, the creator of the Resident Evil series. The game was released on July 11th, 1993 under the name Goof Troop. The gameplay for Goof Troop plays very well. Although there are many types of games with this kind of gameplay, Goof Troop is very unique. First off, after collecting new game, you can select either Max or Goofy. Goofy's strength is off the charts and he hits like a friggin' truck. But it's lacking in the speed department. Max, however, is the exact opposite. His speed is off the charts, but he throws like a child of sorts, and is not really effective, except for the very first enemies of the game, which is kind of a bummer because Max is one of my favorite characters in the TV show, but honestly is not a huge issue because Goofy's strength really makes up for any type of speed that Max has to offer. Once you've picked your character, the game officially begins. Is to attack enemies in this game, you'll need to pick up some items and kicking blocks and using projectiles. You use the blocks or projectiles as a method of attacking, and when you hit an enemy, one of these objects will send them flying into the sky. Not only are these blocks used for a method of completing puzzles in this game, the puzzles in this game range from super easy to very, very hard, which is how the whole game goes as far as difficulty goes. It goes from super easy to really, really hard. Is it really that hard, Dylan? Not really, but you have to admit some of the bosses and puzzles at the end are very difficult. That's true. Wait a second. Did we just have a conversation with ourselves? I think we just did. Wow. That was awkward. See you later. Yeah, because I am you? Okay, my brain hurts. I'm done. Okay, that was weird. Let's move on to the bosses. The bosses in this game are super unique and all of them offer different and unique challenges that I love. And it really makes the game stand out over other Super Nintendo games. And not only this, but the bosses have great interaction with Max and Goofy. My favorite boss has to be the bone bosses. The two skeletons throw their bones at you and you have to throw them back at them. The thing that makes this boss so great is kind of kooky, which fits at the same time is really out of left field for the castle level. All in all, the bosses are great, and I like them in the level design in this game. It's really fantastic that every level does something new and brings something to the table. When you go into every level, the level consists of exploring the level, finding various items and treasures, and getting to the boss and beating the boss. After getting through each level, you can beat the game by going multiple ways of beating the level as the game goes on, which can add some replayability, but you pretty much get the most out of the content by beating the game, which is not bad. But the best thing about this Super Nintendo game is the way you keep your progress is the password. The password isn't something like 12 numbers like in Mega Man X, but like 6 pictures, and all you have to do is memorize the picture. Then you get to the level you ended on. It's a perfect password system, and it's because this game is so short. It's perfect for how short the game is. And I really like how there are a lot of items in this game by means of health and helping you progress or to help you get health. The first thing is the hook shot. This hook shot can help you hit enemies and temporarily stun them for a period of time and grab items that are too far out of your reach. This item is going to be used the most due to the fact that it can help you to make a tightrope, get to the next side of the platform, to make it to the next room or next part of the level. The next item you get is the bell. The bell is what you only use to draw enemies to you, and it only gets used like once or twice in the game. The next item in this game is the candle. Candles light up a dark room, so yeah, it's another weirdly lame item. The final item in this game is the shovel. Shovel allows you to dig holes to gain health and 1-ups. I love digging to see what comes next. Speaking of health, the health in this game is gained by grabbing fruits. Two of the fruits are cherries and bananas. Cherries will give you 1 heart, and bananas will give you 2 hearts. When you collect 7 of them, you get a 1-up. You can also get red diamonds, which also give you 1-ups as well, and the blue diamonds will give you continues. With the items in this game, they are simplistic, and I really like how they feel like Zelda in a way. The next thing as far as gameplay is the enemies. The first thing is the animals and the snakes and the porcupines and the frogs. They really are nothing too spectacular, and honestly, the actual enemies in this game are the pirates. The first pirate is the jollies. They are the standard enemy because they really don't do anything but beeline to you if you get too close. The next enemies are the Rogers. They're basically big jollies. It takes max 2 hits to kill this guy too. One is the Jacks. The Jacks are green and they throw swords at you. And in tight situations, the swords can cause a ton of havoc. The next ones are the Jacks. The Jacks are basically the Rogers, but they can kick blocks. This one, for example, they are freaking jerks. The next enemy is the Jester. They are basically jolly, but they can throw barrels at you. The next enemy is my least favorite enemy, the one that wraps up. These little jerks are hard to deal with because not only can they kick blocks, but they can go into a watermelon form and speed towards you. In a few rooms, they are freaking obnoxious, and I hate the enemy in this game. The next enemy in this game is the Rambles. The Rambles breathe fire and honestly easy to deal with because when they're breathing fire, they won't move for around 10 seconds. The final thing I wanted to go over as far as gameplay is the graphics. The graphics are really good for a Super Nintendo game. Everything is super distinguishable, and I love how Max and Goofy look in this game. It is literally taken right out of the cartoon, and I love it. The music and sound for Goof Troop are fantastic. The music is one of the best Capcom has ever done in my opinion. It's one of the best on the Super Nintendo, and the sound effects are really a hoot. And quite goofy, no pun intended. The sound in this game is perfect, and I've really enjoyed this soundtrack immensely. The story for this game begins with fishing in Sprinterville. Goofy, Max, PJ, and Pete are trying to catch big fish on their fishing trip. A hugboat kidnaps Pete and PJ, and the game officially begins. After getting through each level and defeating each boss, Max and Goofy have finally made it to the ship where Peach and PJ are captured on. After getting to the end of the ship and finding Keyhole Pete, the pirate captain, the final battle begins. After taking down Keyhole Pete, Max and Goofy finally find Pete and PJ, and they go home, and the final credits ensue. The story is just simple, and I really like how simple the game is. It doesn't really need to have something that is spectacularly long. Heck, even the title cards don't really have much to tell on the story. This is simply what we needed. It is short and sweet and to the point. The pros very much outweigh the cons for the review of this game. The tight and simple gameplay, the level design, music, and sounds are fantastic, and there's nothing really wrong to be had about this game. The only real thing I have a huge deal with, it's a bit short. The game actually gets longer levels the further you pursue, so it's not a huge deal. Goof Troop is an awesome game, and I've always had it near and dear to my heart as a kid. And even now, I love playing this game. It is fantastic, and I really don't have an issue with it. It is a clear-cut, perfect game. I give the score a 10 out of 10. I couldn't have given it anything lower because I honestly couldn't think of anything to constitute a lower score. Well, that does it for Goof Troop. It's a fantastic game, and I'm glad Mickey had made me review it. Of course, but I'm still not done with you yet. But nice sucking up, though. Haha. I'm never getting out of this stupid marathon. Again, Don, you have to wait in due time. In the meantime, try this game. If this is gonna keep me quiet, you're wrong.